next speaker is leading the charge in building trust and amplifying creator voices. Emily Lakin is the head of creator community at Patreon, where she drives strategy for online community programs and education. Under her leadership, Patreon's community has seen consistent growth, deeper product adoption, and standout satisfaction scores across both virtual and in-person experiences. Her team was even recognized with Best Creator Community at the 2023 CMX Community Industry Awards. We love recognizing greatness. In this session, Emily will explore how we as community leaders can turn challenging asks into opportunities for collaboration. She'll share how shifting from a hard no to a thoughtful yes and can strengthen relationships, build trust, and keep momentum alive. Please join me in welcoming Emily Lakin. There she is. Hi, Emily. You're muted. We can't hear you, but we can see you. We still can't hear you. If you go
How about
up.
this?
Yes.
Okay. That was an odd input, but now I'm back. Hi.
And
How
what a
are
beautiful
you?
voice it is. Doing well. I'm definitely going to get some more water during your presentation, but the audience is ready. They're excited to hear from you today.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here, no matter whether you're just joining or if you've been here for hours.
Have fun.
Thank you. All right. Well, as I get myself, there we go. As I get myself set up here, I am very excited to be here with you today. I am hoping that you can see everything on my screen. And I'm really here to talk to you about these moments where saying yes to just one more thing means you're not going to be sleeping for the next month because you're just overcommitted. Or saying no again means that your colleagues stop coming to you with collaboration opportunities. Today, I want to walk you through a practice of moving from an automatic no response when you get asked to do something to a practice of saying yes and when something comes your way. This is a really valuable practice, no matter whether you're an individual contributor or whether you're coaching a team to show up as a capable and collective cross-functional stakeholder. So I want you to walk away today with a framework for navigating asks for your time and attention in a way that really protects your bandwidth, builds trust without burning out, and positions you as a strategic partner and leader. I'm going to review this framework and some examples, and I'm going to leave a lot of time for questions, or even if there's scenarios you want to role play and ask me in the chat how I might handle it. I'm happy to do that as well. So get those fingers ready later. Before we get into it, a little bit about me. As Beth said, my name is Emily. I'm the head of creator community at Patreon. I started as a consultant at the company, then as a programs lead, as an individual contributor. Now I lead a team of 5. I think what's really interesting in this transition as well is that I moved from nonprofits. I had a long career in nonprofit arts and culture organizations to tech, in part largely because of going to things like this, networking in community industry groups, meeting people, having speaking engagements, ultimately directly led to this job at Patreon. And so I just want to commend all of you who showed up today and who participate in things like this, because I've learned a lot in my time in these kinds of community industry networks and events, and I hope you do too. So I'm also San Francisco based, East Coast raised, a little bit bi-coastal, and I have an admission. When someone asks me to do things, my gut reaction, my inner voice is a naysayer. It automatically says, what does this cost me? Does this resonate with you? I hope it does. I don't think it's just me. But this is what my inner voice does whenever I get these asks. And we've all experienced these kinds of challenges. Challenges where you get asked to do something, you're faced with competing priorities, with constant asks and shifting focus, and knowing that ultimately saying yes to everything is not sustainable. Does this sound familiar? I hope it does, because that's what we're going to get into today, and we're going to get into some strategies for that. Now, I might be dating myself, but I did want to explain this meme very quickly. It's from a late 90s movie called Office Space, which really featured a skewering of corporate culture. This boss would show up and say something like, I need you to do this report. And for me, this really identifies the way we feel when we get these kinds of asks. You know, bosses or coworkers, they don't care about your workload or well-being, requests that demonstrate a lack of care or consideration. And a lot of this is changing a mindset, or rather it being an ask, a transactional relationship, and more of a collaboration. So what happens in this current state when you get asks and you're either always saying no or always saying yes? Well, if you're always saying no, you might be perceived as resistant, unhelpful, not collaborative. If you're always saying yes, you might think that you're kind of losing focus. You don't have clarity on what you're trying to achieve. It might be perceived that you're not focused on work that you own, but rather work that people are asking you to do and contributes to their goals. And ultimately, you might start experiencing burnout and resentment of the job that you have and the work you're being asked to do. And that's not a place you want to be in either. So here's the yes and mindset. It's a core concept taken from improv, where actors are on a stage and they're playing this kind of yes game with each other, and they're not allowed to say no to the situation they're playing out. Often it's a scenario given from the audience with a couple of keywords. And from there, what they have to do is accept the reality, don't block or deny it, expand it with their own details, and move it forward. So let's say in improv, the audience is asked for a location and an animal, and they say, let's go for the Buena Vista Cafe in San Francisco, supposedly the birthplace of the Irish coffee. Fun fact. And for the animal, a grasshopper. You're playing the bartender, and your improv partner as the grasshopper hops to the bar, jumps on a stool, and asks for a beer. Do you accept this reality? You know that a grasshopper can't walk into a bar and start talking to you, but you have to. It's the yes and game. You don't block and deny the situation by saying this is ridiculous. And from there, you expand it with your own details. So I might say, hey, did you know there's a drink named after you? And the grasshopper thinks for a second and says, oh, you have a drink named Bob? It's a bad joke. I know. That's why I'm in the community industry and not a comedian. This is the example of the yes and game. You are constantly saying yes to whatever is offered to you and moving it forward with your own details. So let's talk about what this looks like in a professional framework. And hopefully in this situation, no one is laughing at you at the end of this. So someone comes to you, you get asked to do something, and what is your response? You acknowledge the request. You name your current priorities. You offer the trade-off, and you invite alignment. Let's see what this looks like in action. Here's that boss again. And your boss comes to you and says, hey, Emily, I need you to take on a new project. It's a feedback roundtable we want to host next month in New York for some of our top customers, and I want you to lead it. Your first reaction might be, oh my God, no, not another thing to take on. What am I going to do? This is my boss. This is a lot of pressure. And they clearly want me to do something, and I just can't do it. Well, here's how you reframe this with your yes and framework. First, you start by getting curious. Accept your reality. Don't deny this thing that your boss just came to you with. You might say, what's the impact we're trying to drive? What's the budget? Is anyone else committed to helping with this? These details are going to give you an important set of information about the scope of the request and the signal that, hey, you're considering it. You're not denying this ask. You're then going to name your current priorities. I might say to my boss, hey, I'm working on this retro before a quarterly business review at the end of the month. I'm also planning another community event for our customers in Los Angeles in October. So let's think about how I can work this in. From there, you offer the trade-off. Well, is this deadline flexible for this top customer event? I could work on it in early December. Or you could say, hey, we could push this community event in Los Angeles. We haven't done one for a year, and we're overdue to establish our presence there, but we haven't sent invitations. So I could delay this one event in favor for the other. From there, you invite alignment. You're going to enroll this person who's equally accountable for your work in finding the solution, and a solution that works for you also. You might say something like, which of these paths would you suggest? You've offered 2 ways to make this workable for you, and now you're looking for alignment on which one to pursue. And to get alignment, that person has to contribute in finding that solution. All right, well, not every time someone comes to you with an ask does it come from a boss or an executive or someone with seniority to you. Sometimes it comes from a peer and a coworker. So let's say that a coworker comes to you and says, hey, I have an idea for our big fall product release. I want to host a series of enablement workshops for our community to get folks excited and using our new features. Can you help make it happen? Great. We love people coming to us looking for collaboration, but we can't always accommodate it. So your first reaction might be, oh my God, that's so much work to do right now. They don't really understand what it takes to pull something like this off. I have to design the workshop flow. I have to prep the content. I have to identify the right audience. I have to figure out marketing the series. And then I actually have to go host it. And honestly, once we host the first one, we'll probably want to iterate it. And then there's more work for me to do all over again. How am I going to fit this in to the work I'm already doing? Our favorite internal voices freak out a little bit, but help us be prepared for what we're trying to achieve. So here's how you're going to reframe it with the yes and framework. You're going to start by getting curious. Accept your reality. Your response might be something like, interesting. I have some questions before I can give you a definitive answer. Those questions might be something like, what's the impact we're trying to drive? Does this connect to any of my current goals? If not, could it be shifted to align with what I'm being measured on? When do they want to host these workshops, and who's the intended audience? These details are going to give you important information about the scope of the request and signal that you're considering it and really help you understand how much work it's really going to take. From there, you name your current priorities. Okay, well, I'm working on this retro before a quarter of business review at the end of the month. And I've actually just talked to my boss about reprioritizing my workload so I can do a feedback roundtable next month in New York for some of our top customers. So I'm already committed to that. From there, you're going to offer your trade-off and invite alignment. Could this be something we do for our first release in the new year? We can then cover the features of both releases, and then it's a bit of a meatier conversation. Or if perhaps the timing is important to do sooner, you can say something like, I can help with one workshop, and we need your help to co-design the content and own marketing and promotion. That way you're enrolling this person and making it happen, and they're going to have to split this workload with you. Or if you really want to say no for many reasons, but you still want to be collaborative, you could say something like, right now my OKRs are really focused on making sure our feedback loop is operating in a way that drives trust with our top customers. So given what I'm already committed to, I'm not able to help with an enablement series this fall. Let's talk as we're developing our goals for next year. And maybe we can create a shared goal around a project like this. In this case, you're not exactly saying no, but you're saying, yeah, it's possible, just not right now. You're asking for time to make sure you can deliver a solid experience and alignment towards shared goals. Here's why this works. You're creating shared ownership and accountability. You're building trust through transparency. You're encouraging agreement with strategic focus and clarity. And you're reinforcing your presence and accountability. Ultimately, you're showing up as somebody who understands prioritization and the priorities you have as an individual and as the company. But you communicate the trade-offs really clearly, you navigate complexity with confidence, and you're building trust through collaboration. And who are those people that do this? Who do you become when you understand how to prioritize, how to navigate complexities and trade-offs with confidence, how to communicate persuasively, and know how to build trust and inspire action? Leaders do this. This is how you show up as a leader. In fact, I love this definition. When people talk about leadership presence, what does that really mean? Leadership presence is the ability to project authenticity, competence, and confidence to inspire trust, influence, and motivate others to action. So whether you're an individual contributor wielding peer influence, a direct report managing up, or a team lead coaching employees, using this practice of going from an immediate no to yes and is going to help you with a lot of things. It's going to help with your focus and your strategy, your personal bandwidth, and your professional relationships. And ultimately, it builds your skill set to show up as a leader and move forward in your career. So let's go back to this framework for yes and in the workplace. You acknowledge the request, you name your current priorities, you offer the trade-off, and you invite alignment. Here's some things to remember. You want to set the conditions for your trade-offs that make your yes sustainable. It's only going to work if you understand that if someone offers your trade-off, you can actually do it. This shows that you have foresight and helps you protect your priorities while still being collaborative. You want to surface your trade-offs early in the conversations as well. This positions you as a strategic partner seeking alignment and not a last-minute blocker. Thanks to Beth, I also have my water here. You want to communicate your bandwidth and priorities, even if it seems really obvious to you. Naming your capacity helps others make informed decisions about what's going on. Your boss might know what you're working on, but you want to make sure they're really clear about what you've got on your plate. Also, remember, not every yes and is going to land on the first try. It isn't. That's just not how it works. But don't lose confidence if it doesn't work. You get another run at this. You can reiterate what's on your plate and what priorities you're trying to achieve and what trade-offs you have available, or come up with new trade-offs based on the information that you get back. So what I want you to remember from today, asks that come off as transactional, you do something for me, those aren't going to work. Sometimes they will, but that's not what we're trying to set up here. We're trying to reframe this as a partnership. You want to see clarity and collaboration. You want to set boundaries that support the impact you're trying to make. You can be strategic and supportive without overcommitting. You don't always need to say yes to everything. You also want to model the behavior. So if you lead people and your report comes to you frustrated or anxious about an ask that's being fielded to them, help them walk through this practice. Ask them to flip the ask they received on their head. This is one of my favorite questions. Invite them to consider what would need to be true for this to work, and then talk through the trade-offs. You can offer your own, but really invite them to toss those around with you. This is how you experiment and play with this idea of having the ability to say yes and. Now, like I said, I was leaving plenty of time for questions or a scenario. If you want to offer a scenario that you got recently, a request that you struggled to respond to, or the last no message you said and want to rewrite it as yes and, throw that in the chat along with any questions you have. Before we get into that, I want to offer to connect with me, find me on LinkedIn. Please do send me a note when you do. I'd love to know a little bit about you and if there's anything that inspired you about this conversation. And from there, I'm going to move over to questions.
Great. Thanks, Emily. I, again, just feel so validated. And I mean, these are obviously very helpful tools, but something that I talk a lot about is just like how, all of our community professional pals have come from such unique backgrounds. And not a lot of us are walking around with a degree in being a community professional. And so how nice that some of us who came from theater can rely on the experiences we have from past lives. So thank you for laying this out for some of us.
I'm glad to hear it. To be honest, I don't have an extensive improv background. If I did, I would probably have better jokes in my presentations. But I agree that all the experiences that we get are so valuable and so transferable into our workplace. And honestly, I've used this practice in personal relationships and professional relationships. And I feel like this is a really good tool for anybody, no matter what industry you're in or where you're using it.
Definitely. So, I mean, I have a handful of questions. I was taking some notes, but before you stop sharing your slides, Piper wondered if you could clarify the kind of first steps. So, in that first few slides, you suggested that you answer questions or you ask questions to clarify the ask, but then you also said then the first step is to acknowledge the request. So, perhaps going back to
Yes.
the first
find it.
and slide.
This is the one. So this is a great clarification. Thank you, Piper. So in acknowledging the request, it's not just I heard you, but it's also what do I need to know about this request to be able to then talk through what the trade-offs are. So in acknowledging the request, you're basically saying, yeah, I'm interested. I have some questions before I can really get into whether or not I can do this. So for me, the acknowledgement is not just yes, received, but also a yes, received. I'm curious about how you want to pull this off or really what's we're trying to achieve here so that I can respond with whether or not I'm able to help.
Great. And leading with curiosity. What's the deal? What are their goals? Why are they asking you to do this? That makes sense. Hopefully that makes it clear, Piper. Okay. Yeah, I have questions. So, I mean, how do you handle the power dynamic from leadership when they ask for something completely unrealistic? I mean, what your examples were great. Maybe I can look into that in January or next quarter or whatever. But I mean, I guess this is hopefully nobody's as unreasonable, but how do you handle that kind of power dynamic?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that we were hired for our expertise, and the best bosses know that the people that report to you have this incredible domain expertise and should have opinions. It's not just I'm telling you to go execute and don't ask me any questions and just go do it. You're not my assistant. You're here to help make an impact, and I'm here to help remove obstacles for you. So one of the things that I always struggled with was showing up with that expertise, feeling confident that I could push back a little bit. And then I realized that was exactly why I was there. One of my favorite bosses said, hey, you're the expert here. I want to hear from you. And that mindset flip reminded me that's why I was there. That's what I was supposed to do. Some of the power dynamic is perceived. I would posit some of the power dynamic is perceived and that you should feel confident in showing up as an equal in this conversation because you're being asked to contribute to make something happen. If your value wasn't seen, you wouldn't have been asked to participate. So that's one thing I would say is yes, there could be a power dynamic because it's your CEO or your boss or whatever. But, for me, that means be careful in the words you're using. You're not going to maybe say something snarky to your boss, but you can say, oh, this is a really interesting idea. These are my priorities. If you really need this done now, I need a contractor. Can you authorize that? You're not objecting to anything they're saying to you. You're asking them to help you make it work. And that is the responsibility of a senior leader, is to help you remove obstacles. Now, is everyone an incredible manager or incredible leader and totally reasonable? No. This is why this isn't 100% foolproof. You should do your best and know that regardless of the outcome, you've shown up in a way that you should feel proud of. I would say this works for me 99% of the time. But what I'd encourage you to think about in feeling that power dynamic is whether or not it's internal, whether you just feel like this person is looking at you just to execute and ask questions, or whether they're truly asking you for your participation. Because I'm pretty confident a lot of the time it's the latter, and you have the agency to invite this conversation.
Yeah. It's a great reminder, and I think you can probably stop sharing your slides as well now. But yeah, I think it's a good reminder as well. Like imposter syndrome runs so rampant in this industry for a few reasons. I think I have my own theories, but something as simple as just like when you walk into the room, tell yourself like I know more about this than anybody. So if you reframe that perspective, like they're not asking you these questions because they think you can't answer them. They're asking you these questions because they don't know the answers and you do. So obviously it's easier said than done, but like looking in the mirror and being like, you know what you're doing
Yeah.
can really
Yeah.
help.
And honestly, showing up with smart questions or ideas is impressive. Like people are looking for you to show up, and this is your chance to do it.
Totally. Okay. I would love to hear, because I mean, you say 99% of the time. When do you find it toughest to use the yes and instead of just defaulting to no? Or when is that like 1%? What happens?
I'd say there's two scenarios here. One is, I was in a lot of meetings, got the very end of David's talk, but when I am below the line, when I am not in a space to just have a filter and not let that voice out, or respond appropriately, I can have a gut reaction. We all are human. Sometimes we're just like, yeah, I can't do this right now, instead of maybe walking through some of the scenario. And that's fine. We all want to show up as human, and our colleagues will hopefully understand when we can say, I'm sorry, I didn't really think through that thoroughly. If you want to talk more about this, happy to do that. Here's what I'm thinking about right now and what space I'm in today. There have been times when it doesn't work out, when I'd offered some trade-offs, and ultimately someone was like, I need to get this done, but to be honest, even when that happens, I don't back down from, hey, this is what's on my plate and this is what I can do for you. Sometimes when that happens, it ends up going somewhere else as an ask, and I hope that whoever it lands with can do the same thing. There has only been one time in my career when my boss was like, I just need you to do this thing for me. It was the same boss who said, I want you to be an expert. And because we've had that kind of candid relationship, because I knew who was in my corner, because what he was asking was so small that I knew I could probably fit it in, I said, okay. He's like, I never ask you to do things. I really just need this little thing done. And I was like, fair, I'll do it.
Yeah. It's a great reminder. It's shows the like pause before you respond is so important sometimes. The like trust that you build with the people in your team and your bosses is so important. So thank you so much, Emily. Great conversation, great enthusiasm in the chat as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really do just feel validated. And like I've had my time with the yes and game. It's a good time if you've never played it before. And I love seeing creative ways of bringing some of these other, like outside of the industry, some tips and tricks in to what we do for work. So thank you again, Emily.